Kreisrat abgedankt. Er und seine Freunde sind verschwunden. Über die Jahre hat das Volk auf der ganzen Linie gesiegt. Unerhörtes ist geschehen. Das Alte und Morsche, die Monarchie ist zusammengebrochen.
Most of you have seen what was revealed not too long ago. Direwolf, the figurehead of DBDLeague, the event manager, and the man responsible for practically everything DBDLeague, has been exposed for horrible actions against a young lady that was part of his staff team and a history of repeating these actions with multiple women simultaneously. The Google Doc she released was shared and discussed thoroughly by, within, and outside the competitive DBD community. These actions were obviously reprehensible and demanded answers be given to the community that DBDLeague was seen to lead. So, how did DBDLeague react? With the following announcement. The team acknowledges the situation involving a Google document and is actively working on solutions. They recognize the situation is shocking and difficult and thank the community for its patience. The organization is restructuring to reduce impact on operations and the competitive environment. Savannah and Direwolf have stepped down as commissioners of DBDLeague. Their responsibilities are being reassigned within the team. Season 11 will be delayed by at least 2 weeks due to the restructuring. The team commits to transparency and will continue sharing updates. The community and players remain the top priority. The owner, operator, Derelok, will personally oversee the transition and future operations. Leadership responsibilities had already begun shifting to the owner, but the process is still ongoing and will be communicated openly. This announcement is seriously concerning for 2 reasons. 1, nowhere does it say they were removed from the team. They voluntarily stepped down as commissioners while remaining on the team, and their responsibilities are reassigned within it. This leaves open the opportunity of them returning in the future. Even if you give Derelok the benefit of the doubt that this part may have been worded poorly, it does not excuse reason 2. Nowhere do they condemn Dire's actions. They say in their announcement that the community is their heart, but they do not seem very keen on protecting it. Keep in mind what the doc revealed. We are dealing with a manipulative predator who chats with minors and in real life works as a bloody teacher. Understand how seriously messed up the situation is. Even if you would like to claim that most of these sexually loaded conversations happened after she turned 18, there is still a massive power gap between Dire and her, him being a former captain, then boss at DBDLeague, the man her online career depended on. And I firmly believe that it is not a controversial take to say that a guy in his mid-20s sexting with a 19-year-old is still grooming, especially when you take into account the power dynamic and the fact this started while she was a minor. Now you may ask the question after Dire and Savannah fled the scene and deleted their accounts, doesn't that seal the deal? The damage is done, but it can be fixed now that those two are gone. DBDLeague still hosts huge tournaments for the community, and the groundbreaking never-before-seen in comp history LAN will take place later this year. On top of that, Behavior remain partnered with DBDLeague, as they have not made a statement or taken any action, and Mandy remains on the Discord server. Absurdly, the doc barely scratches the surface of what has been happening in DBDLeague behind the scenes. Dia and Savannah may be trying their hardest to delete their digital footprint, but the internet doesn't forget, and I certainly don't either. Keep in mind, these two were not the only ones running DBDLeague, and at the latest, by now, you must be asking yourself, how do I even fit into all of this? This is my Claudette on the Season 10 banner after all. Hello, my name is Mathis, and this is my story with and of DBDLeague. In case you don't fully know me, especially since I have mostly been active exclusively in competitive DBD, since 2021, I've been a player, a captain, a caster, an editor, a production director, an event host and manager, and most importantly for today, a key member of the DBDLeague staff team, once considered an owner, but that was a long time ago. I joined the DBDLeague staff team already in 2021, which means, in other words,
I was the first. I have seen everything.
So let us quickly recap the development of DBDLeague by highlighting the most important changes made in management. DBDLeague was founded in 2018 by Willie Awesome. He was still the owner and commissioner when I joined in 2021. The second most important person, the man who also recruited me, was Hi Hello Good Day, the main cast and production designer and director of DBDLeague, who created a good 90% of all the visuals back then. Shortly after me, Dire joined, and quickly became one of the most important members. Willie Awesome retired in late 2022, originally wanting to make Gooday the owner, but Gooday was in the hospital at the time, battling a highly critical condition, and together they decided to pass the torch to Direwolf. Upon Dyer becoming the new owner of DBDLeague, he brought with him a lot of friends from his team that he captained, Golden Wolves, that quickly took over a lot of different positions in the staff team, ranging from match officials to moderator or straight up staff. Staff was, at the time, the highest role in DBDLeague, but behind the scenes, Dyer, Gooday and I considered ourselves the technical owners of the organization, having been there the longest and giving us the most say in big decisions. But now that Dyer has manned the organization with his friends, an echo chamber began to emerge that Gooday and I no longer wanted to be a part of. So, we essentially got bullied out of the org by early 2023. I still left the option open of eventually returning, which ended up happening in 2024, when I recognized the league had become more serious. I never could have expected what Dyer was doing behind the scenes in the meantime. When I rejoined, DBDLeague had got a commissioner team at the very top, consisting of Dyer, Savannah and Cassie. I was also introduced to Derelok at the time, another member of the staff team, who I at first got along with very well, which made me believe DBDLeague could finally become something greater. That firm belief was confirmed in 2025 with huge news. An investor by the name of Peppers, or James, had reached out to DBDLeague with an investment agreement that brought with it a whopping $13,000. After he managed to get the ball rolling with everybody celebrating, Season 10 became the largest event DBD Comp had ever seen, with a prize pool of $20,000. The commissioner's decision making in putting all the eggs into one basket was seriously concerning, and we voiced this long before committing to the prize pool. But the failure on managing finances was not the only reason why All Hallows League only offered a pool of $2,500 after. After DBDLeague became an official business, an LLC based in California, now owned by Derelok, through the help of James, Behavior finally reached out to us and they agreed to officially partner with DBDLeague. Everything the commissioners wanted had been achieved in a matter of a few months upon James joining the team. And how did they thank him? By kicking him out. And this is where I lost all hope and left shortly after. The commissioner team from this point forward consisted of Direwolf, Savannah, Cassie, and newly appointed Derelok, until recent events occurred. Which brings us to today. And today I will reveal the true story of what happened last year, how DBDLeague have treated and continue to treat their staff and community, and most importantly, the big topic the commissioners have been keeping a secret. What is the story of James? James first reached out to us via email, and after getting to know each other, a contract was signed on January 29, 2025. In this contract, James agrees to invest $13,000 and to assume the role of strategy manager. For his work, he would be compensated with 25% of DBDLeague's revenue share starting January 1st, 2025. You can think what you want about these numbers, this is what Direwolf agreed on. And a strategy manager he was. We immediately received a huge 26-page document with hundreds of ideas aiming at the growth and expansion of the org. While the contract specifically addresses that the investment would be allocated towards the prize pool, production assets, marketing, and community development, Dyer thought it would make most sense to put all this money solely towards the prize pool. Still, the announcement of Season 10 worked out. Staff and players alike were more excited to have this tournament than any event ever in the history of competitive DBD. But interestingly, from this point on, something seemed off. Take a closer look at the first official announcement. Thank you, James, for making this season even more meaningful and for your ongoing support. This is not referring to the investor James, but James Juilliard, someone who's been donating unbelievably generously for years. While he 100% also deserves his recognition, where's the gratitude for the investor? The tournament kicked off as expected. We had the best launch of any tournament ever, despite DBDLeague typically recording low numbers at the start and only building up momentum once the top teams make their appearance. And everybody on the team acknowledged it. Now that Season 10 was ramping up to be a huge success, the commissioners insisted that the next goal be achieved as quickly as possible. And that was making DBDLeague an official business. And the reason for that was because they really wanted Behavior on board, and they thought they would never take DBDLeague seriously if it wasn't an official business. So they ordered James to pave the way and to help Derelok become the official owner. You might be asking yourselves, why Derelok and not Direwolf? Keep in mind, Dyer works as a teacher in Germany, and Germany has some interesting regulations surrounding teaching jobs. Typically, teachers act as state officials, which comes with tons of merits, but also limitations. Most importantly, he is not allowed to have a secondary income or manage a business, since he is meant to focus on his teaching job. But hasn't Dyer been making money from DBDLeague for years? Yeah, we'll get to that later. Shortly after DBDLeague became registered as an LLC, which you can all Google by the way, Behavior had finally reached out and offered an official partnership with a couple benefits listed here. At the same time, James himself began battling a critical condition regarding his health, which should have put him out of commission, but he decided to push through. Now that DBDLeague was becoming a business, they had to figure out finances, and most importantly, how people were supposed to be paid in the future. This meant that James had to do some digging, and quickly found out that all this time, Dyer had been using someone else to launder money for him. And once James had found out, things started feeling off. The fact someone else was holding money for Dyer was already hinted at in the Google Doc. These receipts depict staff payouts solely dependent on what Dyer felt like the person should receive, while he tried to clear himself the biggest cut. Keep in mind that for years, Dyer has been feeding everyone bullshit that nobody was making any money off DBDLeague, that all the money went into production and prize pools. Not only is this clearly embezzlement, but also money laundering, because, keep in mind, as I previously stated, Dyer is not allowed to have a secondary income as a state official. To add insult to injury, Derelok knew this was going on. Before we continue, another incident occurred simultaneously. A lot of you probably know of Zach, a former DBDLeague caster who then moved on to become a co-owner of 10x, a company that ran the Proving Grounds tournaments in Dead by Daylight. Zach originally wanted to see if there were more opportunities to land to gain experience in the tournament scene and most importantly to improve as a caster, and quickly stumbled upon 10x. Once Dyer found out that Zach started working for 10x and told others about the joy it was bringing him, he became extremely upset. He accused multiple members of the DBDLeague staff team of conspiring against the league for the sole reason that they wanted to help another org. Then he added them to a group chat and threatened them. Especially the final claim is one of the most insane statements I've ever read. Apparently DBDLeague have patented balancing in server rules and reserve any rights. Zach was quickly removed from DBDLeague and demonized within the management server. At the time, he was too afraid to come out publicly about this, but I will now let his story be heard. Right, where were we? After Zach was kicked from DBDLeague and James found out about the embezzlement, Derelok became suspiciously distant and refused to talk to him, which was growing especially concerning because they have not yet paid James at all for his work. So, James approached Derelok with his request to receive his share. Keep in mind that the contract stated he'd receive 25% of DBDLeague's income, which means not only Twitch revenue, but all revenue sources, so also prize pool contributions. Derelok refused to pay him more than $700 for the entire half year he had been there, and DBDLeague made well over $3,000 that first half year. In the end, Derelok decided to remove James from DBDLeague, despite fulfilling his contractual obligations, which is, by the way, very much against the law, so I would not be surprised by an aftermath sometime soon. Derelok made sure nobody would reach out to James after, straight up releasing an announcement on the management server, forbidding anyone to reach out to James and that all of his attempts must be reported immediately, once again providing zero context or clarity on the matter. To summarize, James joined as an active investor. He gave DBDLeague $13,000, became strategy manager, and received 25% of the company. He found out DBDLeague were committing fraud and wanted to expose it, but he became critically ill, which Dyer, Savannah, and Derelok took advantage of, whereupon Derelok kicked him out of the organization, refused to pay him for his work, and kept the money he invested, and covered it all up. And whatever happened to the money? This brings us to the final part of the video. DBDLeague have been shockingly inconsistent with paying staff and even players. Unfortunately, I don't have a screenshot of this, but to summarize what I've had to hear time and time again in meetings by Dyer and Savannah, we do not have to financially compensate our members of staff because they are paid with the privilege of being allowed to work for us. And they took that seriously. Let us talk about picks for a moment. I got to work with this talented artist during Season 10. He's the mastermind behind 90% of the 3D assets and renders created, and he also designed the overlays for the matches as well as the intermission screens. He even designed these wonderful map miniatures that took him actual days of work. Now, guess how much he got paid for them. On top of that, they didn't even allow him to put his watermark anywhere. The only recognition he got is a Discord shoutout. Once I had left, Pix was forced to step up as the production director, suddenly being responsible for everything, despite originally only being hired as an artist. And an artist, he stayed on their Discord servers, despite now doing more than some of their members of staff. Ridiculously, the story doesn't end here. DBDLeague have always advertised the fact that teams would not be paid out later than 45 days after a tournament ends. But during October last year, I reached out to one of the players and asked about the payouts. He described to me something I never expected. The players that were still owed money were not allowed to bring it up, and were left wondering how DBDLeague were going to proceed. Still, this was over half a year ago, so by now surely all the players must have been paid out. Wrong. These are some of the most recent DMs I have with one of the participants. It has almost been a year and some players have not been paid out yet. So how long are they supposed to wait for All Hallows League, for Winter Circuit, for Season 11? DBDLeague now have over 70,000 followers on Twitch. Streams average over 1,000 viewers a stream nowadays. Yet, in all these years, they have not managed to get sponsored by a single brand. And now, in a couple of months, the LAN event is meant to take place, and Behavior are not directly funding this event, meaning DBDLeague have to find a way to somehow afford it. And how do they do it? By begging for donations on stream. I know it really hurts to ask this question, but how do you believe DBDLeague are supposed to afford this event? Dyer told me privately last year that venues ask for tens of thousands of dollars. The players, of course, have to pay for their own expenses, which caused for a good amount of backlash, since is the experience even worthwhile for the players? The main cope DBDLeague could come up with is that the players should feel obligated to pay for their own expenses because this is a big step for competitive Dead by Daylight, even as some players would be thousands in the gutter after paying for traveling tickets and accommodation. While we are provided with donation goals on stream and multiple opportunities to donate money to DBDLeague, we are given zero information about how this money is spent. And given that the League of Nepotism arbitrarily decides who gets paid and who doesn't, we should seriously be questioning whether any of this money is even going towards the event and not the owner's pockets. Now, what to do moving forward? A handful of players have reached out to me asking me to become the new commissioner of DBDLeague and clearing house, but after having found out about all of this, do you really think I still should? Should I really join a league represented by an abusive, manipulative, lying, grooming predator? A league that has not condemned his actions, a league that lies about its finances all the time and embraces straight-up criminal activities behind the scenes, a league that in the end does not care about its players or the community? I'm sorry to disappoint, I will not rejoin DBDLeague. Once the commissioners get a hold of this video, I'll probably be banned from the server. If you still want to reach out to me on Discord, here's my tag. But this is not where the story has to end. Something has to be done about the state of competitive Dead by Daylight. No longer should we allow such fake organizations to be in charge of the community. No longer should we have to deal with these unapproachable and intransparent people. And you all damn well know what's coming next. It is time for a revival.